need to stick to topic, please, and the nature of the report. Thank you. When you're ready, sir.
The car cruising report before you tonight gives climate impact as one of the factors for you to consider in your decision as to whether you impose a public spaces protection order or not. With climate and environmental impacts through large numbers of internal combustion engines burning fossil fuels being listed as a factor for imposing or not imposing the order. I'm Ian Bates. I represent 1,000 Voices, a campaign and a protest group who take our responsibility to protect our communities and our environment seriously. We don't do that from my political position, as you guys do, or we don't do that from ideological position, as you guys do. We do it from a position of moral, ethical, and scientific facts. I tell you now, we will not let you threaten our communities, our children, and their future with your ideology. Not on our watch.
Not on our watch. Not on our watch. Not on our watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and let Mr. Bates continue speaking. Thank you. Mr. Bates.
So when we talk about large numbers of internal combustion engines, we're talking about carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide gases. The only time carbon dioxide, which is CO2, as you may know it, levels were above 300 parts per million was 360 million years ago. It went above 300 once again in 1911. And the current level of CO2s is 430 parts per million. The planet has never seen that level of CO2s ever in all its time. Never in its history has carbon dioxide levels been this high. Climate change is real, it's man-made, and it's happening now. It is totally scientifically proven, it is fact. We have never had the climate change as quickly
Mr. Bates.
as we have right now.
Your time up, Mr. Speaker, is over. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want you to sit there and tell me
Mr. Bates,
that this change
Mr. Bates.
is the sort of change that we've seen in the past. It is completely and utterly unprecedented.
Mr. Bates, for the last time, please.
Sure.
Would you please return to your seat? Will you please return to your seat?
Thanks, Mark. I'll just finish.
It's Councillor Arnold, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'll just return to my seat once I've finished. I'm nearly there.
Okay. Mr. Bates, the last opportunity to return to your seat, please, before I ask you to be removed.
As Cabinet members for the Council area
Mr. Bates.
425.
Mr. Bates, before I ask for you to be ejected from the chamber.
Who's presenting the report?
Me.
You're presenting.
Mr. Bates, I'll ask one more time. Please return to your seat.
Don't be driven by
Thank you to the speakers. And I've got the final speaker, Councillor Keeble, please.
That's the next item on the agenda.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Keeble, you're listed on my as a speaker for this particular agenda item. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Purser. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, please do take the seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've been known to speak on the wrong item at Cabinet meetings before and been shown back to my seat.
You're very welcome here, Councillor Purser.
So overall, this is a welcome report, and it tackles a real problem for a number of our communities. Orders are fine, but they're...
Councillor Purser, if you'd like to continue, if you're happy.
Orders are fine, but they're only as good as their enforcement of them. And I suppose the concerns I've got is that certainly it's a police issue, and obviously intelligence-led, but it also will involve our neighbourhood wardens. I'm really quite concerned about how overstretched our neighbourhood wardens are. And certainly in Abington and Phipsville ward, we've got, we could use a neighbourhood warden full-time all the time. So stretching the neighbourhood wardens to have to take on this public space protection order does concern me. So I'd really want to ask the Cabinet member to ensure us that discussions have taken place with the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner and also with the head of our enforcement service to be assured that the Council has sufficient capacity to enforce these new regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purser.
So we just want to let you know that we're watching you.
Yeah.
We will not let you bring your hatred.
Councillor McCord, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we hear you, mate. Yeah, okay. You should sit closer to the wall. That's plastered also. The point I just wanted to make, are we absolutely sure that the law of unintended consequences may not kick in here, and there is nothing in this public protection order that would prevent anything legally and lawfully and sensibly going on at Silverstone? Because revving cars and racing vehicles is what it's all about. So I just want to make absolutely sure that we're clear on that. The other thing, and this is a little bit bizarre because it's also, I think, Section 59, but of a different plea. I think it's of the Police Act. There is a provision for police to issue a notice to people who are driving a car in an antisocial way, or, in my view, driving it like a muppet, to prevent them. But it has the added benefit that they have to inform their insurance company, and then when the renewal comes around, they have a muppet tax added by the insurer, which really helps. So are we actually also going to use that Section 59 power in order to prevent people driving cars and making a nuisance of themselves as well, which I know we have done in the past. We did it at South Northampton Toaster when they were racing around the long-term car park there. And once you were advised that you may not get insurance, so you may have a massive premium to pay, it stopped. It might be something also for it to think about.
Okay, thank you very much. In regards to the matter that you questioned about Silverstone, I'm assured that we're okay with regards to that. There's various nods around the room. Jane, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor McCord. So I'll move on to the summary. In the absence of Councillor Manning, with his apologies, I'll take this item myself. So it's recommended that Cabinet resolves to make a PSPO, a Public Space Protection Order, in the same terms as the draft order in Appendices A and B for the period of 3 years. So residents, businesses and road users in West Northamptonshire have been continually detrimentally impacted by a range of antisocial behaviours and related activities and across the district. raised some questions myself about the feasibility of this and whether we would invite problems from other areas, as in cross-border. Spoke to officers this afternoon to seek final clarity. So if we look at Durft, for example, the area surrounding Crick, where there's actually a public space protection order on the border of Warwickshire, we seem to not have a cross-border issue there. So this is county-wide, or West Northampton unitary area-wide, and is comprehensive. So that satisfied that query from my part. The details are in the appendices as followed, but so-called car cruising events have been taking place on roads and other places within West Northamptonshire for several years. They're not alien to probably anybody in this room today. Excuse me. These meets regularly result in drifting, as you pointed out, Councillor McCord, and certainly around a venue that is known for it, and indeed places like Santa Pod and other car meets. So we're aware of the private organisers who organise events at Sywell and otherwise, where seemingly there is some irresponsible behaviour, or perceived irresponsible behaviour in the those attending and those doing their exhibits in the community. So this does in fact apply. Some of the events are taking place often so large that they block the roads to lawful use by the road users, and that's very much the purpose of this this rule here. The majority consultation responses in Appendix D and the information from the police in Appendix D and E detail instances where this activities sought to be restricted by the order taking place regularly throughout West Northamptonshire for a number of years. So the majority of the consultation responses set out in Appendix C detail the impact of activities described by respondents. These range from noise nuisance, dealing with verbal abuse, intimidation when attempting to ask participants. I'll cut forward to the end. It's the we've met as a cabinet in advance, discussed this. There's the one incident you note. Councillor Purser raised this about the enforcement of such acts. We will be in attendance at the Police, Fire and Crime panel, and it's a point of note that we will be discussing the enforcement of this in terms with the neighbourhood wardens as well, to make sure sufficient enforcement capability is there to see this acted upon if brought in today. So, just 1 second. Okay. So just before we proceed, I'd just like to offer it to the room around the cabinet members to add comment or any knowledge of this, any input you've got. Anybody at all? Okay. So we will move forward to a vote to implement this public space protection order. So if I will propose this, may I have a seconder, please? Councillor Butler for Highways. Thank you. And then all those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move back to the original item number 6, which is the report from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor McCord, do you have any contribution on point 6? Okay. Okay, and then that takes us to point 7, the original point 7. I've got Councillor Purser to speak on this. Would you like to take the stand? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is obviously a kind of no-brainer of an item in terms of we've got to have it as a council, and we obviously need state-of-the-art IT. And I think some of us in the past have been concerned that the council historically had not invested sufficient, and our predecessor councils had not invested sufficiently in IT, and some progress has been made over the last 4 years. Last year, scrutiny looked in some detail at a number of AI projects that the council was bringing forward, and looked at them in some detail in terms of how they were doing and the feasibility and whether this is a direction we should be going in. And I suppose I just want to ask the new administration, will you retain your commitment to these, or the commitment of the council to these AI projects, because they really offer a lot of opportunities to the council in terms of improving service delivery, delivering services more efficiently, and might even produce some cost savings once we get a bit further down the line. So that's really my question. Are you committed to this approach that is being developed within the council? And also to the importance of IT generally in terms of effective provision of local services. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Purser. I'll direct this item to Councillor Last, who's going to speak on it, and I'm sure will address your pertinent questions there. Thank you. Councillor Last.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Purser. Yes, AI is very much in the forefront of our strategic direction as far as cost savings and using IT effectively. I've ran AI projects myself in other organisations quite successfully and made significant financial savings and also savings within time as well. And I think it's certainly something that we need to be focusing on going forward for IT services. So yes, thank you, Councillor Purser, for that. And yes, you have my assurance that we'll be pursuing AI with all vigour. We have to do so, however, in a secure manner. There's a lot of AI out there these days that's sharing information amongst other databases on the internet, and we need to make sure that we implement AI in a secure fashion and make sure we understand AI and exercise some due diligence there as well. But yes, it's going to be a key part of the strategic direction for IT for this council.
Okay, Councillor Last, would you go through your report on point 7, please, for Microsoft software licensing?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so point 7, we are seeking approval to continue licensing the licensing and use of Microsoft software by West Northamptonshire Council, WNC, the Northamptonshire Children's Trust, NCT, and Northamptonshire Partnership Homes, NPH. The existing 3-year Microsoft Enterprise Subscription Agreement, or ESA for short, the agreement that governs the use of all Microsoft software by staff and users within WNC and partner organisations. That ends on the 30th of June 2025. To continue using the software as well as receive support for it, including vital security patches and updates, requires that we enter into another ESA, which the paper recommends. The use of transformational software within WNC has grown over the past few years, in particular the uptake of new emerging Microsoft technologies around artificial intelligence, AI Copilot in particular, data, Fabric and Power BI, and cloud computing in the Azure environment, have reaped benefits and are in widespread use to power various modern council services. It is recommended that Cabinet authorise the Executive Director of Resources to undertake a procurement exercise and award a contract for the provision of the Microsoft software to an authorised supplier via an enterprise service agreement in compliance with the Council's procurement processes and procurement legislative requirements. Excuse me. So effectively with Microsoft licensing, we have 4 options. The first option is do nothing, and that's not really an option because Microsoft software is in all of our lives at the moment, and you're issued with a laptop, you need the Microsoft Office applications, you need access to email and so on. So do nothing is an actual is not real option for us. Option 2 is partial implementation. This is not realistic or viable either, as having some elements of Microsoft software portfolio supported will quickly lead to inconsistencies and incompatibilities, which would significantly hinder the business operations and result in increased expenditure to resolve. Option 3, full implementation. This is the option this is an option to enter into a new enterprise subscription agreement that provides support for all Microsoft software within WNC, Northamptonshire Children's Trust NCT, and Northamptonshire Partnership Homes. However, I am aware of the current licensing schedules that we have here at WNC, and one of them is the kind of policy that we use a particular license within the council called a Microsoft E3 license, and that is a particular all-encompassing but yet expensive software option. And I would certainly like the council to remove that policy ongoing and look at cheaper options. We don't want to remove functionality from individuals, but we want the appropriate licensing to be provided to individuals within the organisation. And I think over time and over the 3-year contract, we could make significant savings to the council's licensing costs. I would also like the preferred suppliers, whichever we choose through the procurement process, to utilise tools to baseline the Microsoft licensing requirements and commit to a deliverable time frame. So we can work with the council to actually try and achieve that baseline. And then, yeah, so those are the, we also need to make sure and have assurance that within the contract term we're allowed to adjust that licensing count and also the type of licensing so we could recognise those savings moving forward. So I think those are reasonable caveats to a full implementation, which I would like the Cabinet to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Last. I'm going to ask you a question before I open the floor to the other members. Can you, from the analysis you've done in the last week, and thank you for the work you've put in, can you give us a bit of a high-level breakdown of the financial risk and identify some attributed costs and some potential savings over a period? So should we go through with a fixed period before we can re-evaluate, for example?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Yes, I mean, I believe we can make reasonable savings from the off, really, from this new contract to the tune of around, £75,000 per annum. But I think we can go much further than that. An E3 licence, for example, for a standard laptop costs £231 to the council. Sorry.
Councillor Pearce, you're
Yeah, we were just wondering whether we could have a financial concurrent from the Finance Director on that, and also whether detailed contractual matters should be in private session.
I'm conscious of the procurement exercise, which I was just being quite specific because the figures, Councillor Keeble, are roundabout fixed in terms of the matter that Councillor Last is discussing. Mr. Henry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it's worthwhile saying that what we're seeking permission for this evening is to continue with the procurement process. That's it. So we're placing no order based on the report in front of Cabinet this evening. There is a deadline in terms of when we have to finalise the number of licences that we get and the type of licences that we get, and we're approaching that deadline. But no orders have been placed, and we'll continue to work to make sure we have the licences that we actually need. We'll also ensure that there are breakpoints within the contract, as we've discussed previously, so that we can adjust those licences up or down and the types of licences as required. But we're not asking to place the contract this evening, just continue that procurement process.
Thank you, Martin. So back to Councillor Last, you can just summarise there that you've had some headline breakdown, I believe.
Thanks again, Chair. Yes. So, the circa figures, we're not talking to the penny here, but an E3 licence costs in the region of £230 per licence, where an F3, for example, for people who just need access to email and such like is £61. So that's a significant saving for those people that could actually benefit from that licence change. So we can make substantial savings, and we'll look to do that through the contract term.
Thank you, Councillor Last. Has anybody else on the Cabinet got any points to comment? Councillor Slope?
Yeah, just looking at the figure of 1.85 million, if we said there's 3,000 people in the whole of the council, that works out to £616 per year. So, yeah, I would think there's significant savings on top of that, but no doubt there's different licences and things. But
Sorry, Councillor Slope. Martin?
Thank you, Chair. And we are licensing this authority, NCT, and also MPH, so it's slightly wider than this organisation.
Thank you.
Yeah, point noted. Okay, Councillor. So, anybody else? Any input on that? So, if we move that on, 1 second. Move to a vote. So, I will propose that, Councillor Last. Sorry, the proposer. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Hasty. Thank you. All in favour then to pass that today? Thank you. Passed. Okay, point number 9, then the provision of support service to support people with a history of rough sleeping or at risk of rough sleeping are currently accommodated at Oasis House. My first and only, sorry, I beg your pardon, just one speaker, Councillor Keeble. Are you wishing to address any of the points in Appendix C, which would have to move to a closed session?
The closed session I will deal with further on. I had a couple of questions now.
I'm happy that we split that and you can comment again behind doors. Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
I have a couple of questions, but also just some comments about the role of Oasis House and particularly the Hope Centre, because the funding for Oasis House was originally provided on the understanding that the building would provide a secure home for the Hope Centre as a state-of-the-art one-stop shop, one-stop service for homeless people. That was when the Hope Centre was being threatened with eviction from its Ash Street premises, which was originally a soup kitchen, and Hope was going to be relocated to the Eastern District. It was a huge victory for Hope to get funding and security, and the centre has continued to be an iconic charity in Northampton that's inspired lots of young people to become socially engaged and active. It's been a beacon of best practice, not just locally but nationally, a place where homeless people could go and hold their head up high in a place that doesn't have the kind of stigma of an old-fashioned soup kitchen. However, there's been constant pressure on its space, which has been constantly being diverted for different uses, to the extent that now it has difficulty in providing the range of services needed by homeless people. It is able to use its previous basement premises at Ash Street because the regeneration there didn't in fact materialise, but that is and actually has always been completely unsuitable for the type of service, and it's also been too small. In my view, I've been a patron of Hope for some time. It's been very much a story of letdown and betrayal by successive councils, despite which Hope has always rolled with whatever's happened and has continued and has thrived. So if these plans go ahead, and it's clear that it is actually, events are too far down the line to actually change it, I would ask, firstly, that there's an absolute guarantee that Hope is not made homeless. It will take at least a year for its new premises to be acquired and refurbished, so I understand. And during that time, it must be given an absolute guarantee that it will be able to continue to operate from Oasis House, that it won't have to discontinue its services, which have been so valuable. And I would also ask, and this is perhaps a one where the detail would come for the closed agenda, that subject to all the usual considerations, that it would still be able to bid for some support from this council for its services, and that it's not all scooped up for the new providers, so it can still get some prospect. I cannot underline how important the Hope Centre has been, and how staunch the fight was to get Oasis House for it to use as a base. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Keeble. I'm going to ask Jane Carter to speak on the points you raised there before Councillor Hastie will take the point on the report.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, we've been in constant conversations with the Hope Centre during the process. The paper does not mention Hope at the moment because it's a support provision that's outside of Hope support. We have taken constant advice on this, and we will be working with them to provide a secure tenancy until such time as they want to move to another premises. So we are fully committed to having them in that space until such time as they find better provision.
Thank you, Jane. And to Councillor Hastie, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would also like to echo that I've spoken with Alex Copeland at length, and I've also spoken with Councillor Charles Summers, who I believe supports the Hope charity and the work they do. And as far as I'm concerned, what Jane has just said is totally supported by this Cabinet and by me. We want to work with Hope. They do a fantastic job. It is recognised that they supplement, they add to the overall care of the sleeping rough community, and I'll give you my assurance personally, as far as I can, that we shall continue to work with Hope. Coming back to the pertinent part of this paper, which is the procurement, I just would like to, if I may, Chair, introduce the report for the procurement of the provision of support services to support the people with a history of sleeping or a risk of sleeping rough who are currently accommodated at Oasis House. As an introduction, this report seeks Cabinet approval to undertake a procurement exercise to appoint a support provider ensuring the continued delivery of support at Oasis House. The Oasis House service contract currently provided by Midland Heart is set to expire on the 30th of September of this year, 2025. Midland Heart has clearly stated they are not open to further extensions beyond this date. So we recognise that people experiencing homelessness, including rough sleeping, often face some of the poorest outcomes of all of our residents. They're more likely to struggle with alcohol and or substance abuse, poor mental health, and also the long-term effects of real trauma. The Cabinet, well, I recognise that. I visited I visited Oasis last week, had a fantastic meeting with some of the staff there, including Zen. I was thoroughly impressed with the work they do there, and also just the spirit there was inspirational. So, as a council, speaking of everyone, we are firmly committed to the goal of, I can't say eliminate rough sleeping, because I don't think you can ever say you can eliminate anything down to zero ever. So the endeavour is to, wherever possible, reduce rough sleeping to an absolute minimum, and to look after those people who need that safety net. Ensuring those individuals have access to high quality supported accommodation that not only provides safety and stability, but also helps them rebuild their lives with the goal to, at some stage, as soon as possible, reintegrate them into society and achieve their independence after their rough sleeping chapter of their life. I think it's absolutely essential work Oasis do there, and it gets my absolute full support. So the first step of this journey is providing safe accommodation for them that allows individuals to come off the streets, work with specialist support providers available to stabilise their health and well-being. And Oasis House is a vital part of our rough sleeping pathway. It was purpose-built with a grant from Homes England in 2011 to provide 58 units for individuals with multiple and complex needs, many of whom experience rough sleeping or are at risk of doing so. We now have both a challenge and an opportunity to secure the future of this essential local provision and to ensure continuity of support for the residents at Oasis House. This proposal directly supports our One West North Hants plan, our homelessness and rough sleeping strategy of 2024 to 2027, and also our statutory duties under the Homelessness Reduction Act. It also reflects our broader ambitions around prevention, early intervention, and reducing reliance on crisis services. So we are seeking Cabinet approval to undertake a competitive procurement process to appoint a new service support provider, put in place a 3.5-year contract with an option to extend for a further year, and ensure this new service is operational by 1st of October 25, following the Council's acquisition of Oasis House in September of 2025. The purchase was approved by the previous administration in March of this year. The service will be fully funded for 25-26 through the Government's Rough Sleeping Prevention and Recovery Grant, with future funding subject to confirmation but expected. So why does this matter? Well, this is more than a procurement exercise. It's about safeguarding lives, reducing long-term costs, and delivering our commitment to prevent and reduce rough sleeping and homelessness in West North Hants. Without this service, up to 58 individuals could face homelessness with a potential return to rough sleeping. The Council could incur significant additional costs for temporary accommodation if provision in Oasis House stopped. Additionally, there would be an increased pressure on statutory services, including health, social care, emergency services, A&E, paramedics and the police, and the associated trauma that goes with all that, both on public and people who are likely to be affected. The procurement will comply with the Procurement Act of 2024 and our internal procedures. A robust market engagement process is already underway. Officers are requesting delegated authority to finalise and award the contract, ensuring timely mobilisation and continuity of service. Financial and operational rationale: if the building were to be vacated without a replacement service, there would be a significant increase in temporary accommodation costs, creating a significant unforeseen financial pressure on the general fund. And by recommissioning this service, we're not only protecting vulnerable individuals, but also, I believe, delivering value for money and reducing pressure on other public services. The recommendations, therefore, we are asking Cabinet to approve the recommissioning of a support provider for Oasis House, to authorise Jane Carr, the Director of Communities and Operations, to initiate the procurement process. And, Chair, I would like to point out that in the document that was for this meeting on the 5th, published on the 5th, for this meeting, 5th February, it does say in section 3.1b and c paragraphs, there is a typo. That just basically it doesn't give Jane the exact correct title. So I would just like to...
Yeah, point noted, thank you.
Thank you. That's my fault, basically. It's 2 or 3 weeks in getting used to all the different titles, so apologies for that. Lastly, to delegate authority to finalise and award the contract subject to funding and performance. As closing, basically, Chair, Cabinet members, the proposal is about more than accommodation. It's about dignity, stability and opportunity. It's about endeavouring to ensure that no one in West Northamptonshire is left behind. I commend this paper to you and I welcome your support.
Thank you to Councillor Hastie. It's very clear you've done a huge amount of work in the short period that you've been in Cabinet with me, and the rest of the team.
I can assure you the work has been done over here.
And Jane Carr can have some commendation as well. Thank you, Jane. I'd open the floor to any of the councillors in the Cabinet to make any comment. I'm sure they will be most complimentary of your work, Councillor Hastie. Anybody at all? I think we should take the opportunity to move into the private session just to look at the Appendix C, which can't be read in public. And I'll just read the section of the Act that under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public are excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that if the public were present, it would likely be that exempt information under paragraph 3 and part 1, Schedule 12A of the Act would be disclosed to them. It contains confidential financial information in the tender, which we can't make public. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery.
So, can I just clarify, we can come back after it, can we, or is that the end of
That will actually be the end of the agenda, sir, as well. So, okay, thank you, then. Thank you very kindly.